Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back to the latest in my series of exploring these Hammer Frankenstein films. After exploring the 20 discs or 20 film set from earlier this year and then going through all the Hammer Dracula films this summer, I've been kind of working my way through all the Frankenstein films. But before I begin, if you're new here, I like to make these little videos about things I like and want to enjoy. Usually film, and most frequently it's about horror or some throwbacks or some retro stuff that I feel that maybe didn't get enough notice. And if you like what you see, please, consider subscribing and hitting that little bell icon to get notifications for when I put up new content, which is once or twice a week. And that bell really does help out quite a bit, as does sticking around to the end of the video and sharing the video and the channel around. It really does help, and I really do appreciate it. Okay, now that all that's out of the way, I just finished watching Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed from 1969, starring Peter Cushing reprising his role as Dr. Frankenstein. The synopsis for this latest entry is as follows. Baron Frankenstein, with the aid of a young doctor and his fiancée, kidnaps the mentally sick Dr. Brandt in order to perform the first brain transplant operation. So this time I read the synopsis before going in. So I enjoyed it a bit more, kind of knowing what I was getting in for with this. Because like the previous installment, this one isn't really what we're used to. They're trying to kind of go in these new directions with the Frankenstein character, with anything that we've seen in other interpretations of the story, so they have to kind of continue to build and take it in other directions. Overall, I did enjoy this one, but, like a broken record, I'll repeat that it took a little while to get going, about 30 minutes in this case. And this one also has a much longer run time. It was an hour and 40 minutes, which doesn't seem long, but most of the Hammer films are between an hour and 20 to maybe an hour and 30, so this is anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes longer than most of their films. This one did have a pretty interesting story, though, since it involved blackmail, and really leans into Frankenstein becoming more and more of like this mad scientist, that obsession, power-hungry thirst for knowledge, and kind of proving himself as better, it's just like this better person because he's so knowledgeable and such an excellent scientist. But it pushes it so far, there's even a point where, he overhears some men speaking and he kind of cuts in and just chops them down with some pretty savage insults that were actually kind of funny to hear. So he just really insults their intelligence and just their whole status in society. And this scene kind of sets up his character to see, and tells the audience what to kind of expect on this downward spiral of his. Because in earlier interpretations of Frankenstein, even within the Hammer film series so far, Frankenstein is a bit of a troubling character. Most of the controversy around him as far as, the other characters are concerned, or even as far as viewers are concerned, most of that focus is more on kind of like this sacrilegious kind of exploitation of science to further his progress on these experiments, digging up graves, patching people together, exploiting people's help, or, the help of others, or his own status to get his experiments going at any cost. But by the time we get to this, he isn't just stealing bodies or brains anymore. He's, or refusing to help someone and then using their dead body in his, in his experiments. It's, first of all, he outright sexually assaults a woman in this, and he also kills people. Not just for the parts or anything. It's like literally out of vengeance has killed people in this story. So we get blackmail, sexual assault, killing people. He's turning into much more of the villain in this one, rather than, the local population portrayed in previous, versions of Frankenstein, kind of local population not understanding this monster, not understanding what he did, and kind of coming down on them as they are kind of like the antagonists in it. Now it's pushing Frankenstein more to this, to being the villain, as the title says, that Frankenstein must be destroyed. So he's full mode man's bad scientist at this point, and a really dangerous man. But aside from those notes, a few other things to bring up here, of course, is that this worked more like a body swap kind of film in a way similar to the first one, having this brain of one man transplanted into another body. But what's nice about this, though, is that it made it much easier to suspend that disbelief, because we're dealing with pushing science further than what's real. So we get something that we can prove, and it's pushed a little bit further, versus in the previous one they were going in more of like a spiritual route by trying to transfer an entire soul. But so it did work a lot better for me in this one. And we also what's interesting that we get to see that result of the experiment, and then we have a lot more screen time with that, as far as how the man deals with being in this new body, how his wife deals with it, and him trying to kind of take Frankenstein out, meaning, destroy him, not take him out on a nice night on the town, and kind of stop him for good, even for the sake of his own life. So yeah, they had a lot more going on in this one. So to wrap it up, all in all, I did enjoy this one, but I do feel that they are, consistently running out of steam, and so am I, actually. I have 2 more of these Frankenstein films to go. From what I understand, one of them, this next one, doesn't even have Peter Cushing playing Frankenstein. There's somebody else. So, and then the other one, I think, is roughly 5 years after Peter Cushing's, after this one, which is from 1969. So, once I'm kind of wrapped up on this Frankenstein stuff, and we're going to be heading into the holidays, I'll be focusing on some other films, of course, for those holidays. More holiday films, specifically some holiday horror that I can put in there. These ones that I've always enjoyed, that have, somehow centered around the holidays as well, but are also part of horror. Also going to take a little break from some of the retro stuff, from going back quite this far. I think I might want to get a little bit closer to that 75 to 95 retro phase, and maybe occasionally go back for something like from Universal and so forth. But yeah, that's why it's also important for you to kind of, subscribe and hit that little bell icon, so that way you get notifications for when I put those up and you can check them out. Speaking of checking out, thanks for checking out this quick little video here. I got some new ones coming up, such as a new Nightmare on Elm Street video next week, and I'm going to have about, I think, 3 more to wrap up that series. And I also have some older ones on there about hitting up the Halloween franchise, and I put up a very recent one for the 2022 version of Hellraiser starring Jamie Clayton. So get in there, check those out, and I will see you in the next one.